What do you think it means to be a man?
What do I think it means to be a man? Well, it's a simple question.
To be a man, you can't be, I don't know, a forward thinker. You have to be thinking parallel with everyone else.
To be protective over your family. To be the one that, I don't know, just to lead your family, I guess.
I just think taking care of your family, taking care of someone that you care about. Just always being the head of doing things, I guess.
He hid the shotgun and took it out of the stables. He hid behind a wall until Helen went past. He waited until she stopped talking on the cell phone to one of her friends and waited till she walked along the stable until she was right beside her. And just as she walked past, he put the gun to her throat and fired. The shot killed her in a way that she had no time to even change the direction of her pace. The way she fell was because he did it so fast. He had no courage to do it. And all he could do after that was ring his father and say, "I've just killed Helen, what do I do?"
So we have just decided that in New Zealand that the way that we will settle some disputes is with violence, and that's just our culture. So it has been acceptable in the past, and it's becoming less acceptable these days.
It's just very difficult to kind of bear in mind that this is something that is associated with my gender, and like predominantly so.
I don't know, like, it's even like back in school days, if you're really smart, like, you're a nerd, and that's not what goes in with the image of being a man, in New Zealand at least. They just have this, the rugby stereotype, like, you gotta be rugged, you gotta be wrangling sheep.
We throw 30 men into a football field and just let them go for it. And they come out, fucking some of them are unconscious, and some of them are broken this and broken that, and we love watching it. That's just a human, we just love it. We love blood and guts and gore, and we love the battle, seeing men battling each other.
We also come from a society that punish you for making mistakes, that say you're dumb or you're useless, or she shouldn't have got a lippy to you, it's not your fault, and society's beliefs around how we have blamed women with a lot of the issues about ourselves.
The greatest problem we have in New Zealand today is that we have become a very blasé, we don't want to know attitude about what's happening in the world. We see somebody roughed up and laugh about it or brush it off. The time's well gone, we have to stand up and do something about it.
Hey, let's all share our stories, and in the journey of sharing our stories, we can learn from each other.
And so my options were police, and I thought, I'm not like that. I've never been involved with the police. I'm a good guy, I'm a good guy who just really badly beat my partner and needs to do something about it. And so went to a men's program. For me, it was really great. I expected the guy to come out to be this big, heavily tattooed, mean-looking dude. This little guy in a suit came along, and I expected to be told off. And actually, that wasn't what it was about. It was some real questions about: is your behaviour, is that the kind of man you want to be? Is that the kind of relationship you want? And it wasn't. I didn't want that. So I was leading a private life and a public life, and often my private life was quite different than what I was portraying in public.
So it's the verbal abuse, the emotional abuse, and the physical abuse. It's that whole lot that kind of makes you feel, or made me feel a lot, less of a person, and that's not the kind of thing I want other people to feel, because I'm aware of how it made me feel and grown up. It does become a struggle because I lack that confidence in myself, it's taken me a long time to actually, find my feet and go, no, actually, I'm a good person and I can do this or I can do that, and I don't have to seek the approval of my father, And I don't,
Helen had always said that she stayed for the two reasons I keep on hearing. She stayed because she felt she could keep the girls safer by staying in the relationship. And the other was that she was more afraid of what he would do to her if she left than what she had to put up with by staying. But then it got too much. She was severely beaten. She got through that, but his attitude didn't change. There was no remorse whatsoever. And in the end, she knew it was just going to get worse, so she told him that she was going to leave him. And we rejoiced. We were so excited. I don't think those next few days any of us could have been any happier. We were laughing and joking, and it was the worst possible thing we could have done. Because those last few days, that last week, is when a woman is 4 times more likely to be murdered than at any other time. And we had no idea. I was completely naive. We just were so happy she was leaving. And the tragedy is that because of my naivety and because I thought I knew what was going on and understood, Helen got murdered. And all I needed to do was to lift the phone, make one phone call to say Women's Refuge, who would have advised me on what the situation really was, and Helen could still be alive. Just one phone call, and she could be alive. And that's the tragedy of what happens with domestic violence.
As a young man, I had some quite strong violent tendencies. And I look around culturally now and see those same things. New Zealand has a really strong culture of violence. As much as we want to make rugby politically correct and rugby league politically correct and take the violence out, it's violent. It's men coming together and clashing. We're modern day warriors. What we do with that, power inside us, that warrior energy, is a choice as you learn different ways of being.
As a soldier, I spent 7.5 years doing some pretty unpleasant things. I saw some horrific things in a number of places, and it took me a long time to come to terms with that. And I was saying, some of my close friends in those days have taken their own lives.
Well, I've got 2 boys and all they do is beat the shit out of each other and me, the whole time. I mean, if my youngest son at 7 now can inflict a punch on me that actually really does hurt, I let him do it. That's the other thing. Like, I wrestle with him. I allow him to punch me as hard as he possibly can for some basic reason. I don't know what it is. It's just an instinctive thing. Like,
I've got a son that doesn't like sports. We went from the league club to the glee club, So everything's about, performing arts and that. Do I love him any less? Absolutely not. But I had to get over that. Because I sort of thought, hang on, he meant to be back in the league club, not the glee club, So I had to get over myself. And that hasn't made me love my son any less.
As a culture or as a family, you just got to decide that punching someone in the head is the wrong thing to do. It's just unacceptable to do that.
Being a dad means that you're committed to the journey to actually growing with your kids, learning with them, loving them, caring for them.
The worst thing that often that you could get called as a young guy was, people say you're a girl. In the family that I grew up in, it was really masculine, and actually you didn't talk about feelings and emotions and fear or any of those kind of things. And actually one of the few emotions that was okay to show was anger, because the other things were seen as weak, and things that were seen as weak were feminine, and I certainly wasn't a girl. So there's this whole charade really.
culturally, I think men have learned in some instances that that is the behaviour to have. Speaking from my own experience, but I think at times, or there is a certain time when we have hit ourselves on the head with a hammer hard enough that we actually, we understand that, you know, to hurt other people is it's hurting ourselves, them, you know, all of the people connected to them. We don't have to do that, but I think it's sadly part of our evolution.
We, as men, construct our own version of what women should be, and interpret what's a good woman, what's a bad woman. We do all those same things, which is, I guess, akin to colonisation, akin to one group of people claiming authority, claiming ownership of another group of people.
Men have to change a lot of their thinking, you know, even from the subtle things of when you're buying a TV or buying a car, you both agree to that, but usually the man will decide upon the make and the colour. And when they're buying TVs, you both want a TV, but he will decide how big it's going to be and the make it's going to be. So it's, you know, it's about having a true relationship and discussing these things where everyone has a voice and everyone's face is represented in that.
Making that choice to separate myself from my father was probably the best thing I've ever done, because it allowed me to start becoming myself, being my own person, and not having to follow him and not having to do the same things that he's done.
Masculine empire isn't a solid thing out there. It's a bit like the internet, or it's an ethereal thing. But it's a set of beliefs that we as men have deeply embedded in our way of looking at the world. That comes at a huge cost, and like things of the past, like witchcraft, for instance, or slavery, those kind of things that we've had before that we're better without. I think masculine empire is something that ultimately we're better without, and because it does huge damage to our children and women, but it also impoverishes the life of men, I think. So I think a challenge for guys, and maybe for us as a society, is, you know, what cost has masculine empire come at, and do we want to jettison it? Do we want to get rid of it?
Unless we can find healing in ourselves and that sense of forgiveness and acceptance, then we don't know how to give that to others. So you can't give to people something that you don't have yourself. So you can't forgive and even accept unconditionally, I believe, unless you've actually gone through the journey where you've begun to experience that for yourself. And so I needed to go back. I needed to sort out my relationship with my dad. I needed to forgive my dad for the burden of expectation that I had, you know, upon him. And unless I did that, then I was going to continue to give that to my children. So I needed to release him, and I needed to release me and set myself free from that. And so I believe that it's important that where possible, men do need to go back. Because we don't realise the fact is that, in fact, with my dad was in just as much pain and hurt as I was. And then I began to know and hear his story, that he didn't have a dad. His dad died when he was young. And so I began to listen, and as I began to listen and hear, then I began to realise actually he couldn't give me what he didn't have.
Men need other men to stay healthy. We cannot put all our needs around mirroring and listening and feedback upon a partner, be they male or female. It's not fair. And it's very hard to mother your lover. So men and women, I presume, need time with our own.
Well, what do we do now? And then begins the journey of change.
In a relationship, you do have arguments, but the difference is that the wife isn't fearful that you're going to beat her because she got too lippy, and that's the difference, I think, between the relationship and intimate violence. That in the intimate violence, if you speak too much, remember, it means she's on the boss, and I will decide, you know, those sort of things.
So I want to be part of a generation of men and women that take the decision to find a better way. And this goes way beyond looking after the earth, looking after our wildlife. It goes into looking after our essential selves and going back to a situation where we can communicate with respect and openness and a sense of dignity, but also a sense of compassion. And that's what I do.
And I think we need to get off this buzz where we just sort of think masculine is for male, feminine is for female. In actual fact, we should just say that different ones of us have different characteristics that make us who we are. Some men can be more nurturing even than women, and some women can be more sort of masculine than some men. And I think we need to actually change that. I think we need to talk about that more and be more accepting. I think we're starting to do it, but I think we need to do more of it.
No one's perfect. You know, the behaviour is bad, and we don't want the behaviour to keep on occurring. However, through change, you know, the things are going to happen that we're not going to like. And I think the main thing is that people hang in there and providers hang in there to support that person who's going to be going about change.
Well, we haven't made the progress we need to make. We've focused a lot on violent men and systems that will prevent violence, but really the big job ahead is actually working with men, particularly men in men-only spaces. I think we've made huge progress in terms of equality with men and women in the public domain, but in the private domains of men together and men at home, I don't think we've made a hell of a lot of progress.
It's 50 years ago, I think, Martin Luther King stood on the steps of the Washington Monument and gave that great speech. Well, I have a dream. And I have a dream that we can bring New Zealand back to being the safest country in the world. If we lost it in a 40-year period, why the hell can't we get it back through another 40 years? It'll only take a generation to change the mindset.
You know, being violent there are no positives of being violent, you know. It doesn't make you stronger, it doesn't make you more powerful, it's the sign of a weak person, in my view, you know. It's someone who's unable to talk things through, sit down and be honest about how they're feeling, or say, hey, look, you know, I need help because I can't cope. And you're using your fist or your mouth or to put someone else down is, it's not a solution whatsoever.
I just think that it's the greatest reward in life. Of all the things that we can do, my strongest belief is this, that you know, you can climb mountains, you can build buildings, you can earn a whole lot of money, but at the end of the day, the one thing that you'll leave behind in your legacy in life is your family and is your children. And I think the last thing that you would ever want, that I know that I would want, is to know that when I have my final breath, the people that are around me are my children, you know, and my family who love me.